everyone, it's Alyssa and this is Always Cinema Chic, the place that encourages you to stay in, get dressed up, and watch a movie. So today I'm going to do two things. I'm going to review Ingrid Goes West, and then I'm going to give a little bit of an analysis at the end because I really feel like I have to, and there will certainly be spoilers for that, but the review will not contain any spoilers. So Ingrid Goes West stars Aubrey Plaza, Elizabeth Olsen, O'Shea Jackson, and Wyatt Russell, and it's directed by Matt Spicer. And for me, this is one of the funniest comedies that I've seen all year. But I will give this kind of warning that I don't like normal comedies. This is really dark. There are parts that are very disturbing. It's certainly a satire, but there are some strange things that you're watching in this movie. But I just loved it. It's such a commentary on the culture that we live in today. And after seeing just so many bad comedies this year, I just could name so many comedies that I hated. To see one that really meant so much to me was incredible. It just knocked me over. So the movie is about Ingrid, who's played by Aubrey Plaza, who has just experienced the death of her mother, but instead of mourning her mom's death, she's just addicted to her phone. And she's addicted to liking pictures on Instagram. And so she has this little incident at someone's wedding where she is actually sent to a mental institution. And once she gets out of the institution, she is even more lonely and she misses her phone even more than before. So you see her just frantically liking pictures on her phone, and she's just trying to connect and attach herself to someone in a fake world, whereas in the real world she could care less about what her reality actually is. And so she comes across this woman, Taylor, who's played by Elizabeth Olsen, in a magazine that she's reading, and it says something like, "Here's your latest girl crush." And so she starts to look at Taylor as this image of perfection and decides that she's going to take all the money that she's inherited from her mom's death and she's gonna go out west and find this girl. And so of course she inserts herself into Taylor's life when she gets to LA through unethical and illegal means. It's definitely a little bit single white female and what about Bob, but what I loved most was the deeper message of this movie. There are just so many teenage girls and women in their 20s who idolize these Instagram stars who really aren't doing much of anything, just taking pictures of themselves and creating worlds that make these other girls feel like they're worthless and they're not doing enough in their life. And well, yes, as you're watching the movie, Ingrid does get crazier and crazier. She goes to some pretty dark places, but at the same time the film is definitely critical of Taylor and shows that she's a little bit crazy too, trying to cultivate this perfect life of avocado toast and finding the perfect bohemian blanket. She's so consumed with her image and how other people see her that you realize that in a lot of ways she's just as crazy as Ingrid is. And then rounding out the cast is Ezra, who's played by Wyatt Russell, and yes, that is Kurt Russell's son, and he plays Taylor's husband, who is pretty much the opposite of her. He doesn't have any social media. He still has a flip phone and is made fun of for it, and so he really is that counterpart, and she never listens to her husband. So while he's trying to kind of get her to stop living this certain life that she's created, she convinces him that he needs to kind of go into her world more, and it's kind of depressing to watch. And then there's also O'Shea Jackson, and yes, that's Ice Cube's son, who plays Dan, Ingrid's landlord, and all-around nice guy and Batman lover, who starts to develop feelings for Ingrid because she's just a little bit different from the other girls in LA. Now, it's interesting to note that the two male actors in the movie have really been living in the shadows of their fathers for so long. And in this movie, they're really living in the shadows of the women who equate fame with success and true and utter happiness. Now, like I said, this movie is definitely not going to be for everyone, and I understand that. It is very dark comedy at times. I will say that Aubrey Plaza looks downright crazy in this movie. Like, you actually believe she's insane. And when you see her going into Taylor's bathroom and taking pictures of all of the products that she uses and taking pictures of her medication so that she basically can become Taylor and learns how to mimic Taylor so that she fits in to this group of people, it really is nuts and disturbing. And it's really strange that none of the characters really realize how fake Ingrid is being, because it's very obvious through some incredibly awkward expressions on Aubrey Plaza's face that she is just trying to mimic being in this world, but she's definitely not succeeding or being her true self. And the only characters that really see that are Dan and then Taylor's brother, Nicky. He definitely sees it as well. Now, the criticisms that I have is that the movie is not as filmic as I'd like it to be. It starts off showing the Instagram feed in a rather artistic way, so it's cutting back and forth between the Instagram shots to these very cold, realistic shots of Ingrid's eyes voraciously reading and liking every picture and tagline in her feed. I really wanted the movie to have more of that artistry throughout the whole of the film, but it didn't. So it took a concept that was an awesome concept, but it could have been elevated a bit more if they paid more attention to the cinematography and getting more of that perspective from Ingrid that they do in the beginning of the film. But the performances in this movie are awesome. So the two guys are great. They're very natural and subtle in the movie, but I found that Taylor was incredible. So Elizabeth Olsen playing Taylor, she was the quintessential LA bohemian girl with that slight vocal fry that she keeps throughout the entire length of the film, and she has this real ability of like knowing how to pose herself and get the best angles and the right light, and she's just so consumed by herself. And while in the beginning she seems so awesome and she seems perfect, by the end you see how fake she is, and Elizabeth Olsen just captures that kind of character perfectly. But Aubrey Plaza definitely steals the show in this movie. She does not care what she looks like. She will do anything for a laugh, and I love that about her. I love the subtle details that she had. So whenever she was around Taylor, she would just go into this LA vocal fry, but then she would get right out of it when she would be talking to anyone else. And I thought those little details were so incredible, and she really, like I said, she didn't care what she looked like in this movie, because there were some shots where I was like, oh my god, you look crazy and insane. And so she just blew this movie out of the water. She was awesome in it. So with that said, on to the grades. I would definitely give Ingrid Goes West for film and artistry a B+. It is this wonderful, dark, satiric film. Now, the problem is I'm not quite sure if everyone would like this kind of comedy. Number one, it's also very much from a female perspective, because it's really looking at that culture for women in their 20s and their teenage years and how awful that culture actually is. But you know, I think it's something that everyone really should watch. And then in terms of watchability, I would definitely give this an A. This is my kind of comedy all the way. It's dark, it's awful, it's very sad, it can be very dramatic at times as well, but it really gives an incredible commentary on the culture, and it made me feel like I wasn't alone in hating this culture of social media and creating images of ourselves and making people think that we are someone who we aren't, and not being real with each other. And I love that concept, and I feel like not that many people understand what I'm talking about when I say that. So it was nice to see a film that I had the same perspective as. So now I am going to move on to an analysis, because I really thought that this film deserves a small analysis because it's awesome. So there are definitely going to be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the film, don't watch. Leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, all of that. But now you've been warned, and I'll move on to the analysis. So I don't read any reviews before I watch the movie, but I did go and look at Rotten Tomatoes. I looked at the taglines of what the critics were saying right after I saw the film, and there was one that really stood out to me that I wanted to read to you guys. And so a critic from the Seattle Times, her name is Moira McDonald, said, "You won't remember Ingrid Goes West for long after it's over, but as summer diversions go, you could do much worse." I actually could not disagree with that statement more. I felt like this was such a timely movie that uses satire as a way of exposing this culture that is so obsessed with social media and creating images of ourselves and being people who are fake and not genuine, and more interested in the lives of other people that they don't even know than the lives of people that are actually around them. And I don't see how that is a movie that is forgettable in any way. And what I really loved most about the story is that you find out that Taylor actually was just like Ingrid. When she came to LA, she was just this preppy girl who didn't have any of that LA cool, but when she came in, she just started mimicking people and figuring out what it takes to fit into that LA lifestyle. And then she does exactly what Ingrid does. She just may not have been as mentally deranged as Ingrid. And all the while, she really is just a basic girl who steals her cultivated image from people like her husband, who is the one who really loves reading Joan Didion, while we find out that she's never even read any of these books. The film provides the message that so many girls are simply faking it on social media and creating images that show the perfect side of themselves. And what happens as a result is that a lot of teenage girls and girls in their 20s get a ton of anxiety and depression from looking at these photos, because they feel like they can never be good enough, and then they become really addicted with these websites and then clicking on the like buttons, and it creates a lot of drama with their friends. And so instead of actually going out there into the world and creating something and doing something that they're really proud of, they've become sort of obsessed with this meaningless superficiality. And to me, Ingrid is a very hyperbolic manifestation of that kind of girl. So once again, Ingrid really is all of these young girls who become really obsessed. Now, because this film is satire, Ingrid is over the top, bonkers obsessed. But at the same time, maybe that's the internal self of a lot of girls today when they go on social media. I mean, I see girls every day, no matter where I go, taking pictures on Snapchat and always checking the way they look. And it's become a culture where some people are just so obsessed with themselves, and it's a little bit frightening. And I feel like this movie definitely showcases that. Now, with Ingrid, what ends up happening is that when she tries to kill herself and she gives a moment of complete honesty and candor to all of her viewers, she's actually rewarded for that, and that could be a good thing. But yet, when you see the character wake up after she hasn't died and she's been saved by Dan, you once again get the feeling that she's gonna go right back to being a fake person and construct whatever image she wants to make for all of her fans, because now she has all of these fans and everyone is going to love her, much in the same way that everybody loves Taylor. And in some ways, it really reminded me of the end of a Black Mirror episode, more specifically the one with Daniel Kaluuya, where he becomes famous for a moment of honesty and then capitalizes on that moment for the rest of his life. Ingrid is not learning any life lessons here. Yeah, sure, she's rewarded for her candor for a little bit, but she's going to go right back to creating the version of Ingrid that she wants the world to see. So I found myself feeling most badly for the men in the film. So first, Dan, I just felt horribly for, because here is this guy who saves her life, and he really does genuinely care about her. He opens up to her about why he's so obsessed with Batman and how terrible his childhood actually is, but he's living in reality, sort of, kind of, while she is living in this world where all she cares about is being adored by thousands and thousands of fans, and she doesn't care about this real relationship that is being created right in front of her eyes, but she could care less about him. And then you have Ezra, who is Taylor's husband, who really is just trying to do whatever will make her happy. He thought he was getting a really down-to-earth girl, but she ends up turning into this person who's just trying to create a brand, and it turns out that he is part of that brand and that vision that she sees for herself. So she doesn't want him to do what he actually wants in life. She wants him to be an artist so that he is part of this beautiful picture of this carefree, easy breezy girl who just takes pictures in LA and goes to Joshua Tree, and then she has this great artist husband, but yet he doesn't actually want any of that. And I left the film just feeling really sad for so many of these characters. And at the end of the day, every character in this film is isolated and lonely. Ingrid lives vicariously through the fake lives of Instagram stars. Taylor believes that she's created a perfect life, but she has the inability to connect to anyone to realize if they're genuine or not. Then Ezra is just too afraid to leave Taylor that he avoids making her confront how fake their life is, and that he's not happy as an artist. Then Dan is stuck idolizing a superhero that he's loved ever since he was a kid because he never got over the abandonment he felt as a child. And Nicky, Taylor's brother, is so lonely and disconnected that he drowns himself in cocaine and other drugs and then claims that he's sober. He acts like he cares about his sister and that he will expose Ingrid to her, but he only blackmails Ingrid so that he can get $5,000 a month. And what's more is that Taylor ignores her brother's constant benders, thinking that he's totally sober and just acting like Nicky. The whole film explores how social media creates further distances amongst people and how it can really divide relationships, and it prevents people from forming any real and genuine connections with real people who are right in front of them. And anyone who thinks that this is a really silly movie doesn't understand the timeliness of what this film is actually trying to say. Yeah, there are silly parts, there are really dark, funny parts, but the film is using humor as a means of exposing this world and this culture that we live in today. And if you don't see that, then I don't think you see the reality of what it's like for so many young people and social media, and how they get obsessed with Twitter and Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram and just updating profiles continuously. So I just really love this movie, and if you've seen it, please leave a comment below. If you have any recommendations for me for dark comedies, I love dark comedies. Like, I love Heathers, all of those types of films. So I would love any recommendations that you have. Please like and subscribe, and remember, it's always in fashion to stay in, get dressed up, and make it a cinema chic night. Bye, guys.